Hello, everybody. This is Ralph Martin, and I'm the founder of rjqualityconsulting.com. And in this video, I want to talk about how to use the ISO 17025 Internal Audit Checklist. As you may or may not know, I am offering a free ISO 17025 Internal Audit Checklist. All you have to do is fill out the form underneath this video, enter your name and email, and I will give you access to this free Word version of the ISO 17025 Internal Audit Checklist. And so this checklist can be used for your internal audit as a record that you conducted in ISO 17025 internal audit, but it can also be used as a gap analysis to find the gaps that you are not meeting in the requirements for an ISO 17025 laboratory. So if you want to know, how ready your lab is to meet the requirements of the standard, or you would like to use this checklist as an internal audit record, either way, you can use this checklist. I created this checklist to meet the requirements of ISO 17025 internal audit requirements as stated in section 8.8 of the standard. And what I'd like to do, and I do this in all my videos, is I like to go to the standard itself and really talk about what the requirements are for conducting an internal audit in accordance with the ISO IEC 17025 2017 version of the standard. So right now I'm on section 8.8 of the internal audit section of the standard. And you'll see, it's a pretty short section, but, it is a requirement. Auditors will audit this area and look for records that you have conducted, objective evidence that you have conducted an internal audit. And as many of you may or may not know, I am a certified ISO IEC 17025 external auditor. I do represent one of the largest accreditation bodies. I do audit for them. And I am also a quality consultant that's available to help laboratories meet the requirements of ISO 17025. And one of the things I do is I have a newsletter that you can sign up. You'll get this free internal audit checklist, and I am available for questions. I also offer a free 45-minute consultation for any laboratory that would like information on how to get ready for ISO 17025, or if you're already accredited to ISO 17025 and you would like help like conducting an internal audit and that sort of thing, I offer those services as well. So that being said, we're on section 8.8 of the standard, and as you can see, the requirement is that the laboratory shall conduct, this is a shall statement, the laboratory shall conduct internal audits at planned intervals to provide information on whether the management system conforms to the laboratory's own requirements for its management system, including the laboratory activities. So that's one areas of the standard that you have to audit, your own laboratory activities. And then the other one, the second slash here, is the requirements of this document. What that means is the expectation is that you have audited this standard to see that you meet the requirements of all the clause elements. That's what this requirement means. So the auditor will be looking for records proving that you have audited all of the clause elements of the standard, and the way that can be objective evidence that can be proven that you've done that is an internal audit checklist that covers all the elements of the standard. And of course, it needs to be effective and implemented and maintained. Maintained meaning you do it yearly. The laboratory shall plan, establish, implement, maintain an audit program, including the frequency, methods, responsibility, planning, requirements, and reporting, which shall take into consideration the importance of laboratory activities, concern changes affecting the laboratory and the results of previous audits. Define the audit criteria, ensure that results of the audit are reported to relevant management. You would do that during your management review. And then that you are implementing appropriate corrective actions without undue delay, that you don't leave these actions items open for a long time, is what that means, without doing anything about it, undue delay. And the big one is to retain records as evidence of the implementation of the audit program and the audit results. That's where this checklist comes in. So this checklist, when you download this checklist, I will give you step-by-step instructions on how to use it. The checklist is, the first couple pages are instructions. How to use the checklist. You can read through this. You can literally use this as a work instruction to conduct the audit. The other thing is this audit checklist is rebrandable, meaning it's editable. So this is a Word document. Right now, it has my RJ Quality Consulting logo on it, so it's branded for me, my business. It has my name here, the name of my business. You can change that to the name of your company. You can, upload your own logo. And if you want to copy or cut out the work instruction part of it, you can do that. And then what will happen is and this is part of the work instruction here. I give you examples on how to effectively use this internal audit checklist. And then you can, even cut and paste this section and use it as a work instruction or leave it there. But the rest of it is an actual internal audit record that you can fill out to use as objective evidence that you completed the audit. You'd put your laboratory name, what the internal auditor's information is, all of that in like I said, a Word format. The rest of it here this happens to be a PDF, but it comes in a Word format. The idea here is every clause element of the standard is covered and put into a question format. It is directly the clause elements of the standard converted into a question. The lab reference column here is intended for you to fill out one time. And what I mean by that is if you fill this column out at least once for every element of the standard, what that will do is it will make you become very familiar with your quality management system and how it meets the requirements of each clause element. It takes a long time to do that. I'm going to be upfront with you on this, but it is a valuable exercise. At least do it once. Have the quality manager or someone in the organization go through this exercise one time. And what I mean by that, and it's in the work instruction, you want to do 3 things for each of the clause elements. Actually, a minimum of 2, some things 3. And what I mean by some things is anytime in this checklist you see objective evidence is required, you will add 3 items to this column which are relatively permanent. And what I mean by permanent is you might have an SOP that meets the requirements of, say, internal audits. So your SOP would be your internal audit standard operating procedure, provided it doesn't change the name or change the reference number or something like that. It would always be the objective evidence that shows how to meet that requirement. So what are the 3 things I'm talking about? The 3 things are, and I'll refer to the work instruction up here, and I actually give an example of a populated area where I'm giving you an example of what I mean by the 3 things. So, and this is really, really, really beneficial for you to do this at least once. It will teach you or someone on your staff how your quality management system meets every clause element of the standard. So what you want, it is recommended that you identify the laboratory documents in sets of three for each clause element as follows. One, an upper level document that says that you meet the requirement that is associated. For example, how do you meet the requirement of impartiality? Well, section 4.1 of my quality manual basically indicates that we meet this requirement, right? ISO is all about say what you do what you say. So this first upper level document is the say what you do part. Um, Laboratory ABC um, is structured in order to protect the impartiality of the organization, right? That's a statement. That statement is written in section 4.1 of Quality Manual Reference, Rev number 1. So that's the first one. Lower level document, the second document would be the lower level document that describes how you meet this requirement. The how would be the impartiality policy written. So, the requirement in section 4.1 is that management shall be committed to impartiality. Well, that basically means that objective evidence that would meet that would be your impartiality policy. So your second level document might be um, impartiality policy statement XYZ Rev 1. Okay. And then your objective evidence is a evidence that you indeed do what you say. So we have say what you do what you say, and here's objective evidence that we actually do it. So if you look at those are three items. So if you look at the example I have here, the question section 6.4.3 is, does the laboratory have a procedure for handling, transport, storage, use, and planned maintenance of equipment? And then you'll notice that there's a section here that says objective evidence is required. So this is an area where you would have three things. You would have, okay, quality manual section 6.4.3 says that, we have a procedure, and that's what this overall big statement says in our quality manual. It says we meet this requirement. Our laboratory SOP for equipment is how we meet this requirement. So the first one is the description that we meet it. The second one is a work instruction or standard operating procedure indicating how we meet this requirement. And then objective evidence that we meet this requirement could be your equipment log. You might have form-EQ-log. That is our equipment log that indicates all of our equipment. It's an equipment list that tells the equipment ID number, the manufacturer, where the equipment is located, what the maintenance that was done last date, and what's the maintenance due date. If it needs to be calibrated, it would be calibration date, calibration due date, and those items would be like on a master list if that's how you document your equipment. And then that would be your objective evidence that you have a procedure for handling, transport, storage, and use plan and maintenance equipment to ensure proper functioning to prevent contamination or deterioration. So your objective evidence is this equipment list that shows that we, maintain our equipment. That's the objective evidence. So the three items would be quality manual saying we do this, laboratory SOP or procedure that says how do we do this, and your procedure might call out your equipment list. And objective evidence is we maintain an equipment log that shows that we maintain our equipment. So if you do this exercise for every clause element of the standard, one of two things will happen. You'll become very familiar with your quality management system. And when somebody like an auditor asks you, how do you meet the requirements of 6.4.4? Well, you would say, In our quality manual under section 6.44, we do this, and then we have a laboratory standard operating procedure, and section 3.2 of that procedure says that the laboratory verifies equipment that conforms to specified requirements, and we have objective evidence, and it's our equipment log. It's like if you can spit that out to an auditor and show him this documentation, you just made his life easier. He is not very likely to give you a non-conformance in this area. The easier you make the external auditor's job, the better off you are. So how do you use this? I told you that you need to do this at least once. So one time in your career as a quality manager, fill out this one column for all of the items on this checklist, and it's a long checklist. But you need to do internal audits more than once, right? So what you do yearly when you do your internal audit is you just comment on it and give the current information as objective evidence. If objective evidence is required, you would use objective evidence. You would look at your latest version of your equipment log. If it's, one of the requirements later on down would be examples of calibration certificates. You can't use the same calibration certificate every year because eventually they'll become expired. So you would, as objective evidence, you would have a updated calibration record showing that you maintain calibration records for your measurement equipment, stuff like that. So the idea is to do this once for this column, indicate whether you meet the requirement or you have an NC, and then when you do your yearly internal audit, put in, yes, this meets the requirement, and my new objective evidence is this. I looked at this document, this document, and this document, and I didn't see any nonconformities, so I am conforming to this clause element. You come here, you'll notice this is an example. Uh, is the equipment used for measurement equipment capable of achieving the measurement accuracy and or measurement uncertainty required to provide a valid result? When we did the audit, we looked at our, records for measurement equipment. We found out the balance number 2 did not have a current calibration certificate. It had expired. So we found an oops, right? So there's a nonconformance. So that lets us know that we let the calibration record expire. This kind of stuff happens. So what do? You create a nonconformance, and that becomes a finding from triggered by your internal audit activity. The internal audit is an event. Nonconformities are triggered by events, right? So you might have a nonconformance that's triggered by an internal audit. You might have a nonconformance that's triggered by a customer complaint. You might have a nonconformance that's triggered by external audit. So in this case, this would be a nonconformance that's triggered by an internal audit. And then, of course, at the end of the audit, you would track all of your nonconformities, and that would be your findings of the audit. And one of the required inputs for management review is to discuss your internal audit findings with upper management, right? So that is how you use this checklist, and it does cover every clause element of the standard. And like I said, it does come in a Word format. You can utilize this also as a gap analysis tool. So if you're having a hard time coming up with these 3 documents, you might realize I don't have a procedure for that. That's my gap, right? My quality manual says that we do it. You know what? I don't have a procedure, and the requirement of the standard says the laboratory shall have a procedure for ... So, like for example, I'll go to section 6.4 because I happen to know there's a requirement for a procedure. Let's see. Let's see. There's one here, 6.4. 6.4.3. The standard would say the laboratory shall have a procedure for handling, transport, storage, use, and planned maintenance of equipment. The internal audit checklist says, it turns it to a question: does the laboratory have a procedure for handling, transport, storage, use, plan, and maintenance of equipment? And then you go through this as a gap analysis tool and you realize, you know what? I don't have an SOP for this. There's a gap. Okay. So now you know that you're missing a required procedure from the standard. There are, just to let you know, there are 9 or 10 of these in the standard where you'll see the laboratory shall have a procedure for dot, 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 and that procedure shall include A through whatever H or something like that. So that is a good way to do a gap analysis to find out what perhaps procedures you don't have where the standard says. So anytime you have one of these questions that says, does a laboratory have a procedure for, and you don't have one, you know you need one, right? So that's how you would do, that's how you would use this checklist as a gap analysis tool. Or, like I said, you can use it as an internal audit record, and this would meet the requirements for ISO 17025 at serving it as your internal audit record. And then I would suggest doing, following a sample in the laboratory and do an audit for, the individual testing areas for your lab and make sure you have all of the proper traceability documentation, calibration records, certificates of analysis for your certified reference materials, things like that, as the other section. Because remember, in the standard, we talked about um, your internal audit needs to meet the laboratory's own requirements, including laboratory activities. So that would be your individual testing, and that the requirements are met of this document, which that checklist would serve the documentation for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's how you use my free ISO 17025 internal audit checklist. I hope you find value in it, and should you have any questions at all, when you download the internal audit checklist, you'll have my contact information, and feel free to reach out to me. And then also take advantage of your free 45-minute consultation with me, and I'll answer any questions that you have and I'm yours for 45 minutes. You want me to answer any questions or help you get accredited or want to know some requirements that you're unclear about with the standard, I'm available. My name is Ralph Martin, and enjoy the checklist, and you make it a great day. Thanks.